To hire drivers, you've got to work fast and smart. Did you know Driver Pulse, a driver-facing mobile app from 10th Street, is 2 to 3 times more effective than texting and 4 to 5 times more effective than email at getting drivers to respond? Driver Pulse is the largest source of free driver applications in trucking, downloaded by almost 2 million drivers to find jobs, complete training, and communicate with carriers. Companies find who they're looking for, and drivers find their homes with Driver Pulse from 10th Street. A name you trust. That's 10street.com, TEN street.com.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Today we're covering all things scorecarding and benchmarking. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter, on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Before we dive into our guest interview, there is some news in the world that you should check out. A tiny step towards unionization has come to one of the biggest truckload carriers in the country. At 3 facilities in New Jersey, operated by mostly one-way trucking carrier ECM, which is 80% wholly owned by Werner after a 2021 acquisition. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union won a representation vote earlier this week to represent 26 workers. The operations are in Cinnaminson, Hamilton, and Piscataway. Apologies to people in those cities because I very clearly do not know how to pronounce them. Mike Thompson, who led the unionization drive for the UFCW's Local 152, said the vote was 17 in favor and 8 opposed, with 1 member not voting. The 26 workers at ECM compared to a workforce that total about 10,249 drivers, 693 mechanics, and maintenance personnel for its trucking activities, 1,610 office associates for its trucking business, and 1,748 employees at Werner Logistics, its internal 3PL, and other non-trucking activities. The union battle was still considered significant enough that Werner, that according to Thompson, the Werner CEO, Derek Leathers, did visit the workers in New Jersey before the vote to make the company's case against unionization. Could this be the beginning of a no-unionization revolution? Today, we are joined by John Stauffer, COO and co-founder of Isometric Technologies. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks so much, Mary. Pleasure to be here.
I know we previously had Brian on, and I'm excited to get the other half of the brain behind ISO on this show because, you know, you guys are pretty cool. And it's like, I don't know, I always feel like a nice, complete, full circle moment when I get both co-founders. Feel like I've leveled up in life.
Yeah, you've got the yin and yang here. So full picture.
Anytime. Let's get some background on you and kind of what led you to start ISO?
So I've been in the logistics space my entire career, and got my start at Echo Logistics in Chicago back around 2008, right around when they were investing in full truckload as a service. Up until that point, they were kind of more focused on LTL, was their primary mode of or driver of revenue there. So it was one of the first carrier reps on that team. So, you know, probably one of the first 20 or 30 folks. Saw that group scale from, a very small group up to almost 500 by the time I left the company in 2015. Spent my entire career or time at Echo on the carrier sales, carrier operations side of the house. And then moved out to San Francisco from Chicago in 2015. We were kind of polar vortexed out and ready for some career changes when I got introduced to a couple former Google employees that were working on an autonomous trucking company called Otto. Had the opportunity to join the Otto team to help work on commercializing self-driving trucks across the industry, and got to work on the world's first autonomous truckload, driven by the robot driver and Anheuser-Busch in Colorado. So it was super exciting. A few short months after I had joined, though, we were acquired by Uber. And that's where Brian Crystal, our CEO, and I got connected. He was the first sales hire at Uber across the organization. He had been working on commercializing a global fleet of Priuses, figuring out how to what else you could put in Priuses besides people and move them around. So he led what was ultimately the Uber Eats kind of go to market, and then after that transitioned into exploring other final mile businesses, and was doing a lot of explorations with like the Walmarts and Targets of the world, which led them down the path into trucking. And I was also working on basically a digital marketplace at Auto while I was there. So his team and my team kind of joined forces, and that ultimately became kind of the foundation or forming team of Uber Freight. I spent about the first 3.5 years at Uber Freight on the product side, focused on building out our TMS and the operations tools that powered the brokerage at Uber Freight. And that was probably the kind of first glimpse into our first aha moment for what we're solving here at ISO, seeing the amount of time that our team spent scrubbing scorecards and auditing all of this data that comes inbound from our shippers was quite remarkable. I remember living it as an operator in the space, my time at Echo, but seeing it kind of spread across the organization was kind of eye-popping. And then Brian and I, we left Uber Freight in 2018, late 2018, and we were kind of talking to a number of enterprise shippers and kind of doing some explorations and understanding what, challenges they were dealing with. And one thing that kept coming up was this concept of scorecarding. We were like, okay, that's a well-known problem or challenge that, we experienced as brokers and carriers in your networks, but we didn't really realize that was a pain point on your end too. And they kind of peeled back layers of the onion, and they're like, well, yeah, we get scorecarded by our customers just the same way we scorecard our carriers, right? Walmart, Target, Kroger, Costco, they scorecard us the same way every week or every month, and those come with actually millions of dollars of penalties. And the first place that people look is at transportation. It's kind of the smoking gun and tip of the spear. So they go through this kind of painstaking process of understanding their transportation performances well as they possibly can. So that was kind of what the light bulb moment for ISO. We saw an opportunity to connect the dots between, inbound customer performance at an order level and tying that back to the shipment performance at the transportation level. And ultimately, helping shippers understand and quantify the cost of service, whether that's through, like an OTIF penalty or spot exposure, to help them understand their procurement spend beyond paper rates. So we started the company in early 2020 and focused on a go-to-market with enterprise shippers where transportation is a significant amount of their overall cost of goods sold. So it behooves them to invest in performance data, and most of them have really heavy truckload volumes. So the scorecarding process is particularly laborsome for their teams to manage and their carriers as well. So we are now about almost 4 years into the business and excited about our progress. And we're launching a broker solution here actually this month, which is kind of a clone of our shipper solution to help brokers better understand their inbound performance for their customers and the underlying carriers. Introducing the industry's first service level benchmarking product. So we're really excited.
I'm really excited for that because as someone who likes data and likes knowing, how things are going, because, you always have those instances of, oh, so-and-so carrier was late, or, oh, this broker messed up, or you always hear those instances, but then actually, like, how often does it really happen? Because you just hear about the times it went wrong, but that might not be as often. And so it's nice to have that data to back it up and say, okay, well, this happened on these many loads and this happened on this many. And actually it gives you a bigger picture of, how often you do have these hiccups, because it's logistics and transportation. You're never going to have 100% no problem whatsoever, because honestly, I don't think that that's possible. You might have a day where nothing goes horribly wrong, but then it's going to be followed by a day where there's literally just various dumpster fires. You just put out the one that's the biggest. I want to elaborate on this new broker benchmarking software that you have, and then also, why is this performance data from the shipper perspective and the broker perspective so crucial?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you in what we see across our customer base is, the performance data is ultimately, the back end of their procurement process. Obviously the performance data helps, shippers and carriers and brokers understand, how they're performing relative to the SLAs that are negotiated in their contract, whether it's, 98% tender acceptance and 97% on-time pick and delivery, but also where they need to make adjustments in their networks and those tweaks, right? Where they're having underperformance or soft spots in there. What we see is that performance is directly correlated to wallet share and growth, right? For high performers. So strong performers, we see their volumes increase, we see their revenue increase, whereas underperformers, they get cycled out of networks or don't get access to, mini bids or special projects or those, critical opportunities to over deliver and, improve the relationship with your customers.
I think that especially now in the kind of, down freight market that we're having, when we're seeing, tender rejections at like 3% in some markets, meaning like, 90% of all carriers are accepting freight that comes to them. I think now more than ever, those scorecards of, how many times are you accepting things? How many times are you delivering on time? Those metrics of service, I think, are really speaking more now because, if I'm paying people the same, I'm going to go with the one that has better service. Unless you're one of the shippers that just really likes a low-cost carrier, then it doesn't really matter what your service are as long as they're just the cheapest option. But that's not all shippers.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place for that too, right? And we see a really good opportunity to help shippers and brokers alike both kind of align and optimize their networks based on what's important to them, whether it's lowest cost provider or a high service provider. People should understand what the performance levels are of the carriers that they're working with, and so that they can make those trade-offs and those decisions.
I am gonna just say, shippers out there, maybe just don't always choose the low-cost carrier, because although you pay more, you pay less in rates, you're gonna pay more in like claims and damages. But that's a whole other episode that we'll get into another day. So when it comes to these KPIs, what ones are most commonly used to kind of measure the performance of a freight broker, and kind of is there a standardization that you can use to compare any freight brokers between each other?
Yeah. The visibility that we have across our network, the most common KPIs that we see are things like on-time performance, whether it's both pickup and delivery. And we basically see 3 different versions of that or flavors. On time to the appointment, plus, 2 hours, and on time to the day. Then things like tender acceptance, what's the effectiveness of this contract and how's the award performing? And then tracking compliance. So whether it's a ForKites or a P44 or other telematics, from a visibility standpoint, and then also kind of timeliness of updates. How quickly are they closing out stops? How quickly are they, providing paperwork and, updates onto, the statuses of the shipment. So those are the most common ones that we see. Some of our shippers have, 30, 40 different metrics that they're tracking, but, universally across the entire network, those are the most common ones that we see. And that, helps us to, begin to standardize those, right? If we see the same KPIs over and over again, as we can align on a standard definition and start to standardize, which unlocks things like benchmarking. And in terms of how we view standardization, we look and see how ready is the industry for this sort of thing. And, we look at things like the appointment scheduling consortium that, Echo, Uber Freight, Convoy, JB Hunt, and other folks are kind of leading the charge on. So we believe that, there's signals there that the industry is ready to start, adopting standards. And, so long as, we can come to, agreement and align on, the definitions of these KPIs, we think that there's a really good opportunity to start to drive adoption across the industry. Everybody's kind of tracking these internally today anyway. So we think that, the ability to track these at a network-wide level really unlocks some big benefits and efficiencies from a benchmarking standpoint.
I feel like that's also got to be a game changer as well, not only for knowing how, if I'm a shipper, if I want to know how my brokers are doing or my logistics service providers are, how they're performing. And then the same for if I'm a logistics service provider, I want to know how my carriers are doing. I feel like also if I'm a broker and I have a great scorecard with this shipper, I can in turn go around and say, hey, look, we know that we're, 2 times better than anyone else at this level, or we're X amount above this benchmark. Like, can we have some more freight? But, obviously in like a more eloquent way. Has you guys seen a lot of success with instances like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially in this market right now, shippers are getting solicited by brokers and carriers hundreds of times a week, if not, more, depending on the shipper. And it's an email, saying, hey, we're the best at everything. We can handle any type of freight under the sun and unlimited volume and all this amazing stuff. And we talk to our customers, our shipper customers, all the time, and they say that, hey, we have a really difficult time vetting these carriers and these brokers and all this inbound emails. Like it's incredibly noisy, and we don't really know who we should respond to or not. But the ones that leverage data and provide that, that evidence of, or evidence of proof saying like, hey, we are a top performer for this customer. These are the volumes that we're, carrying, and these are the, specific areas or types of freight that we really stand out in. Those are the folks that are, getting, their foot in the door or access to those networks. And I think that, from adopting standardized performance metrics and, introducing benchmarking into that is incredibly powerful and a great way to differentiate and help, carriers and brokers that may previously not have had access to, some of the bigger names in the space, and get them, get the attention of a lot of these larger shippers out there.
I absolutely love that. I'm a big proponent of, your data doesn't lie. You can manipulate it to say what you want, but for the most part, it doesn't lie. So really coming in with that first, because everyone will make that promise that, oh, we're God's gift to transportation. We can make anything happen under the sun. But are you? But are you? So that's one of those where you're just like, I don't know about that. But when you come in with that data and everything, then it kind of immediately like gives you that validation seal that like everything's good. And, you're someone to at least warrant that second conversation with, to continue to build that relationship and see if maybe there is room for a partnership there. But I guess when it comes to developing this technology and collecting all of this data, how do you guys even go about doing it? Because you're just taking if there's a huge problem in our industry where there's a bunch of data, but it's all kind of a hot mess. So how do you kind of aggregate it and make it into something, usable and beneficial to everybody?
No, it's a good question. And, I think one of the big reasons that this hasn't been done yet is you kind of need this, like in Switzerland out there. You need a neutral, unbiased third party to facilitate this and aggregate all the data, analyze it, and produce the measurements, but also, determine how, outliers and what needs to be kind of thrown away, right? Because to your point, you can manipulate data to tell whatever story you want. So, so how we're approaching this is, we're collecting data across brokers via API. They're sending it to us on a, daily cadence. And we're producing, scorecards on their behalf through our UI, and access to industry benchmarks. So we kind of stand as this kind of unifying layer that helps, align the industry around the standardization of those metrics. And, we're not replacing any existing systems that a broker would have today. We're complementing them and help them augment their systems, specifically around, kind of automation. We see a huge opportunity for brokers that are adopting this to help, kind of automate away really key critical components of the procurement process. If you think about the decisions that go into covering a load, right? You look at a load and you go, all right, who runs this lane, right? What carrier should I call here? How should I stack rank my waterfall call list here? And we think that industry-wide performance data is a incredibly powerful tool to improve that process and drive automation there. If you think about some of the tools that brokers are using today to drive waterfall tendering and automate that procurement process, we can plug in there and help them optimize. Who are you offering this load to first? Then, you think, okay, are they compliant? Are they safe to work with? There's some tremendous tools available out there today that can help automate that process, and similarly on the pricing front. And then finally, can you trust this carrier? Are they going to be able to service this load? Does their, service history meet the expectations or requirements of my customer or my customer's customers? So we believe that, utilizing, performance data can really supercharge that procurement process and really drive automation and help brokers get the outcomes that they want to achieve from a performance standpoint.
I feel like that has to be kind of a next level choice when you have especially in the procurement arena, when you're looking for new carriers that you're, everyone has a struggle with, okay, I have this carrier. Are they legit? Are they not? Are they a good carrier? Will they get the stuff there in one piece? Will I have to, send a truck escorted by police in to go pick it up? You kind of want to know what you're working with. And I mean, I guess the same for shippers looking for a new brokerage, they can only kind of go off their word. So I feel like just, shining that light and saying, this is what this person does really well. Because, not everyone's going to be a perfect match for each other. It's kind of about that, finding someone that works for you. And I feel like you guys are just like Switzerland with big flashlights, like, hey, this is what this person does really well. And this is, where this is where they're strong. This is where, they could be better, but hey, here's where they're improving. So it's kind of that that neutral, like you mentioned, that neutral data that's like, everybody's not that bad.
Yeah. And we don't think it's limited to, carriers and brokers either, right? Like it's a two-way street, right? Shippers and their facilities, they should have, performance metrics that are, visible, beyond their networks as well, right? So it's not limited to just the carrier base. We think, every shipper, broker, carrier, facility, they should all kind of have this kind of standardized performance scores at some point in the future.
I absolutely love that. Just so everybody just kind of knows what you're getting into, because it's all about that. If you know that you're walking into a dumpster fire, you can at least be prepared when you walk in with like your hazmat suit and your fire suit. But if you don't know and you're in like flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt and you walk into a dumpster fire, you're going to get real burned real quick. And I think just, knowing and managing those expectations is half the battle.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so we are running out of time, but there is a question that everyone that comes on the show has to answer, and you, sir, are no exception. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm buckled up.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
These are the types of hard-hitting questions that make me nervous to come on these shows. I just got back from Mexico recently, and I'm going to say, maybe a hot dog is closer to a taco.
Okay, that is something that has come up a few times, and the first time it did kind of destroy my entire world, but I've come around to it, and I see your point. However, I think if you walked into like a taqueria and you were like, I'll take a hot dog, you might get laughed out.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I think it depends on the taqueria, though.
That's true. That is true. Because you never know. You could get someone that's just like down for whatever, and they're just like, yeah, sure, man, here's a hot dog taco. Have a nice day.
I'm pretty sure I've been to a taqueria that sells hot dogs.
Okay.
Maybe not a hot dog taco, but I'm sure it exists.
With creativity, you can make anything happen.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to take on your hot dog opinions, or, if they have questions themselves about, where to even start with scorecarding or benchmarking, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, you can visit our website. It's www.iso.io. And alternatively, you can reach us on LinkedIn, our company's website, or reach out to me personally, and we'll respond in quick measure.
Awesome. I love it. You guys heard it here first. John's DMs are open, and I cannot wait to see what slides into them. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it.
Find Check All the Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWaves podcasts, such as Loaded and Rolling and Rethinking Reshoring. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet. Yep.